Hello, welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help with James Lott Jr. I am James Lott Jr., certified life coach, among other things, and I'm bringing on a guest I've had on one of my other shows, Extra Connections, years ago, and he's a great, we've stayed friends, and he's really interesting because he's a doctor and a chef. So, a
Absolutely.
few things put them together, it makes sense to me. We're going to talk about that a little bit. He's a professor of culinary medicine. Again, he's a doctor, he's a chef. He's an author of the book, The Food Shaman, which I had him on the show because of that. And just one of my favorite people out there, Dr. Mike Fenster. Dr. Mike.
James, so good to be back. Thank you. You're too kind, my friend. Too kind.
Oh, you're kind too. And he's in Montana, folks. I love that. I love your motif. I love it. I do.
Hey, just because we don't have an ocean doesn't mean we can't, hoist the colors and get out there on our pirate ships and seek treasures of truth wherever we go.
Ooh, I like that. But that's actually a good question. Because I've been to Montana before, and it's beautiful. I mean, I haven't visited you yet. I can come visit you. But I've been to Montana. It's beautiful countryside. But you're right. There's no, big bodies of water, is there?
Well, actually, up a little bit north. So I'm in Missoula, which is where the University of Montana is, where I teach and we run the culinary medicine course. And if you go about an hour or so north of us, is actually the largest and I believe the deepest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. It's called Flathead Lake. So it's like one of these, long locks, like Loch Ness, people might be familiar with in Scotland, because the topography of Montana is very much like Scotland in that we have these huge mountains. People go to Glacier National Park that were just carved literally out of the glaciers, 10,000 years or a long time ago.
Yeah,
I guess we can be safe saying that. And so we have that one, and we certainly have a lot of rivers and there's smaller lakes, but Flathead Lake is really big. I mean, you could spend the whole day sailing, with the little sailboat down there. So one of these days I got to get myself a little dinghy and get up there.
Yeah, I sail. I know how to sail. I learned how to do that. I'm on the West Coast. I learned as a kid. I learned how to do that. I love boating. I've been boating my whole life. I mean, I love boating. So I could imagine. So I lived in Pittsburgh for a while, and there's the three rivers. So I still have water. I just could imagine not being near. I mean, I love being near a coast.
Yeah. So where'd you live in Pittsburgh? I grew up in Pittsburgh in high school.
Maybe did I? I don't remember we talked about. Okay, so I was in Troy Hill.
Okay, I know where that is. I was in South Hills in Upper St. Clair.
I know what that is. Yes.
Yeah.
I have friends in Grafton. I have friends in Cranberry. I have friends in Penn. But I was in Pittsburgh. So folks out there, I was in Pittsburgh proper. I had a beautiful house. I sold last year.
Congratulations!
After 15 years, because Pittsburgh's changing. And I'm on the north side of Pittsburgh. There's these rivers. There's a south side, north side. I was on the north side near the Mexican War Streets district, and then it was East Ohio Air Street, and then it was Troy Hill Spring Garden. My sister lives in Spring Garden. I have another sister in Millvale. I have a sister out in Ross Township. So I know. I know about Pittsburgh. And I think about Pittsburgh it's actually a cosmopolitan city in some form. It's a big city, lots to do. And
as you said, it's really changed kind of and I grew up there, many many years ago, in high school and stuff. But still got to remember Stargell and the Family, right?
Yes. I'm gonna say something. I know it's not good for you, but I do love it. My Primanti Brothers sandwich.
Primanti Brothers sandwiches with the French fries on the sandwich. Yeah,
exactly. They're so big.
Well, that's something that we kind of talk about and we cover in culinary medicine. If you're going back to Pittsburgh now, right, and you're going to visit your family.
Yeah.
Go have that great food experience. Have that Primanti Brothers sandwiches. Enjoy yourself. Make it really positive. And that, in and of itself, as we're learning and as we talk about in our culinary medicine course, one of the fascinating things that we're discovering really in the field of medicine, and I think it's something that chefs really knew in the culinary world, is that how we eat is very important. And by that, I mean, it's not just the RDAs and the nutrition. It's certainly the ingredients, but it's, how they're prepared. Are they just assembled, deep fried? Are they crafted? Are they crafted with love, as it were? Who are we sharing that meal with? What's the experience? because those positive emotions affect our physiology. They affect our immune system. And a lot of people don't think about it in terms of the positive, but almost everybody is familiar with the fact that depression has a negative effect of your immune system. You don't recover from illness. It makes you more susceptible to illness. And people say, yeah, okay, I get that. The data is really good. We look at that. But we don't take the converse into effect. And that's important. Now, can you go out and have a Primanti Brothers sandwich every single day for lunch? I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
But as a special thing, when you go back to Pittsburgh and you're with your family and as part of that celebratory feast, that's important. And we know there was a great study done that showed, and this is something actually we cover and we teach in the course because it's such a great example, that no matter what you're eating, if you take just a moment, not even 30 seconds, but take a moment before you sit down with your food. And some people might call it a blessing. People might say grace. It has nothing to really do with religion or whatever, but it's what it is important is to shift your attitude to one of gratitude, to give thanks, whether it's to your Lord, your God, your neighbor who grew the zucchinis, the animals that are in play. Those foods, you're shifting your whole neurophysiology, and we could actually measure in terms of a reduction in inflammatory mediators, positive effects. So that act of ritual with dining before we dine, and it doesn't even have to be every meal. I generally do it with I try to do it with every meal, but sometimes I'm in the hospital and I'm running from here to
Right.
there. But certainly, the big meal of the day, if you can sit down, and especially if you can do it with family, friends, wherever you are, wow, powerful impact. So in a sense, yeah, you're right. From a strictly kind of hardcore science nutritional aspect, not a great choice. But in the setting of a kind of one-off celebration, screw it, man.
Yeah.
You enjoy yourself.
I'm going to have one. I'll go back there. I'm going to have
Absolutely,
one. But no,
absolutely.
but I like that though, and because I always talk about how food, and especially I have family, Puerto Rican, Southern. Most of us are from the South. I mean, it's like food is an experience. I mean, it's all
Yes.
about the culture of the family. It's all the food is almost incidental, so to speak. It's kind of like it's there, but it's the whole like Big Mama and cousin so and so, and Uncle so. That makes it, I'm talking about. That makes the
Yeah.
food more enjoyable. I'll tell you something because I'm a big Bob Evans fan also. I like Bob Evans breakfast. That's like my thing. We don't have them in California, of course. So when I go back there, I have to have Bob Evans breakfast. I can't do it every day, of course, because I can't eat like that anymore. Anyway, if I wanted to,
Yeah.
but to go and there's a certain waitress I know that works there. The one in Ross Township. I go to the one on Big Night Road, and she knows. There's Robin. Hi, Robin, if you're watching. Always get her section. And so you're right. It's about the whole experience because we're hanging out with her. I haven't seen you in like 6 months, and and it's just like this whole. The food is good, clearly, and whatever, but it's like it's the experience that makes me happy. And as I'll see you again next time, and then you go out to business. I love
Right,
that.
and that's something that at least the way we teach culinary medicine at the university is a little bit different. Some of the course, some of the focus is really like nutrition with some tasty kale recipes, but we actually devote a whole section onto understanding the totality of this food experience, because that's what really ultimately affects our lives, our health, our wellness. And a friend of mine, she's a general practitioner in California, actually wrote this really great book. And, she sort of came clean in that she said, listen, I have patients that do everything, as it's written by the book. It's none of this, and it's, kale, and water, and she said they are miserable. They have all these, health issues going on, these things back and forth. And she said, then I have these patients that do 180 degrees from what the recommendations are, and their blood work looks great. They're happy. They're healthy. And what is this? And a lot of that has to do with, as we're understanding the totality of the experience. A lot of people like to compare the human body to a car, and to say, oh, it's only about the food is fuel, well, yeah, but then you're ignoring, the air pressure in your tires. And most importantly, for a lot of people, right, the roads you drive on. You take your car over broken glass and shards of metal, and you're going to get flat tires. And it doesn't matter what fuel you put in your car. So it's the totality, the sum is bigger than these individual pieces. And that's us as human beings. I mean, I get excited about food, as you can tell.
I love it. No,
And I'm so excited about, culinary medicine, because although we focus on the food-based relationship, it is about the relationship. And what is life, right? It's about the relationships you and I have with each other and others. That's all it is. It's not about the stuff. If your relationship is only with stuff, will show you a very unhappy human being. And that's not Chef Dr. Mike's opinion, right? That is the Harvard happiness study, which was a Grant and Glueck studies. And basically what they did is they went out over almost 70 years now, following individuals and saying, what are the things that make for a long life, a healthy life, a happy life? Is it the socioeconomic position you're born into? Because all of us say, well, gosh, if I had money and fame and fortune, that'd be it. Is it your genetics? Is it your education? What are these things? Is it the things? Is it having a lot of stuff? And what they found was fascinating, which is the single most important thing to living long, to living well,
yeah,
and to living healthfully is the quality of relationships, particularly with each other.
yeah,
And so in culinary medicine, there are two important aspects of that. One is our individual relationship with food, because we all have one, because we all have to eat. And then how food is that currency, and you just touched on it. It's social currency,
mhm,
has been since there's been civilization. Food has been a social currency of sorts. So how is that food relationship? How do we use that, between each other and the different aspects and relationships that we have in our lives? And so that's really what we kind of focus on. And I think it's an exciting, certainly evolving and growing discipline, but terribly exciting as the data continues to accrue, that wow, these things that kind of our ancestors knew about ritual and food and communal dining and all the things you just said. I celebrate. I go back, I bring my family, we go to Robin Station,
yeah.
and it becomes a celebration. And and I look at the smile on your face. I mean, the emotions that you're generating, that's the key. At the end of the day, life is about these relationships we had. And I would challenge your listeners and viewers, what are yours? And if they're not great, how do you strengthen them? And what specifically is your relationship with food? Make it a healthy one. And having that Primanti Brothers sandwiches and going to Bob Evans and then feeling like shite, for the next week, because you're like, oh, I should have done that. I'm so bad. I'm so guilty. 40 lashes on my back.
Right.
You're not accomplishing anything good.
I'll tell you something. Also, another thing that's happened. A lot of us are home, shelter at home, and
Mm,
the COVID thing going on. And so many people are having to cook for themselves. I'm finding out people who never know how to
yes.
cook that much. And so here's something for you to tell you, Dr. Mike. So a month ago, so I've been home for 62 days. I don't know how long it is at this point. I'm pulling my hair out. I don't know what's going on. But no, but when we went into it, spring was coming. And luckily in California, we get spring, obviously. We get spring. So I have a huge garden. People who know me know I have this giant garden. I always post pictures of my garden. I have plants and flowers and trees and fruit trees and everything. So my loquats are coming in. Folks, you know what loquats are? They're Japanese pears. They're little yellow things. And a lot come in. I have 2 trees that just fruit. So normally I'd have friends come over and pick them. Like, if I could pick some loquats, take them with you. We're socially distancing, so I'm doing that. I made loquat jam.
Awesome.
I'm living off the
Awesome.
land, Dr. Mike. I'm living off the land.
Well, and actually, one of the things I try to do through this, and you actually just, hit on one of the keynotes, is what I call practical culinary medicine. So, yeah, we want those great ingredients, those organic ingredients. And when we're doing things like that, like you said, right, they come in abundance, but they come for a short season. So how do we make that last? Well, that's where we take our cue from the culinary world, because when I was a chef running a kitchen, food costs are a big concern of mine because they're perishables. So you don't want to waste anything,
Nope.
because despite what people really think, our margins in restaurants, one reason that so many of our friends and colleagues in restaurants are in such trouble is because the margins are small. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not making a lot of money, real restaurants,
Right.
off
Right.
each sale. So we do things like that, right? We take those pears and then we have all these extra pears, make jam. So you can then enjoy it, over the winter seasons and things like that. Other things we can do is, to make sure that we use all bits of the fruits and vegetables, for example, that we get. So I was showing we had some beets that were coming in spring in Montana. We're a little ways behind you guys in California, so
Yes.
we got our beets first. But I buy the organic beets, so they have the stems and the leaves with them. But you could took those leaves and made just a wonderful, very simple pesto with it. So pine nuts, Parmesan, olive oil, salt, pepper, and absolutely delicious. Take the stems and parboil them and use them in a stir fry. So all these sorts of things that we can do. And then we're using all of the vegetable and nothing's going to waste. And that's how we work it in the restaurant. So what you're hitting on, I mean, you're not just living off the land, you're doing practical culinary medicine, because the ingredients that you're starting with are exactly where we want to go for health and wellness.
Yeah. So for me, because I grow garlic, so I have garlic for things, but also I have lemon trees. So in the loquat jam, I use the lemon juice from my lemon tree, and the loquats from my lemon tree. The only thing that I had to use was pectin and a couple of things. I mean, I had that in my cabinet, but like literally, it's natural on natural from my land into a pot. And it smelled so good, of course, when I was making it. It felt good. But it felt
And
good.
you got to play the Trini Lopez song when you're doing it, right? Lemon tree, very pretty,
Exactly.
and the lemon flower is
Exactly. I love it. But but I mean, I really did. I felt when I finished my first batch, I've made several since then. I've given some away and stuff. I'm like, but it felt good because I know that a lot of us food shortages are happening, and everybody's getting all scared out here in California. So it's kind of like, you were like, you're living off the land. I said, I am. I have grapes coming in right now. I'll be using those for something.
Yeah.
It's like I have gardens anyways, always growing stuff anyway. But I thought that is interesting. If we grew our own stuff, that actually helps prolong your food life also, because you're thinking the store is out of, you don't go to the store, it's out of lettuce. Well, I got lettuce in my yard. I can do that instead. So I'm very proud of it, because I have nectarines, I have avocados, I have plums. I mean, I'm growing my own stuff. I'm just using it myself. And I just love that during this time period, it's like, folks, I have a lot of friends of mine who now are planting mini gardens in your house, just inside your house. You can do it in your windowsill. You can do it.
Yep.
You don't have to have a garden. You can actually go on a balcony. I have a lot of friends doing it now. They followed me and they started doing it now.
Well, they should, and you, James, you are so spot on, man. You are, I love you, brother. You are my trendsetter.
Yeah.
Because exactly what you're saying, and for the folks out there that say, well, I don't have any room, like you said, a windowsill garden box of herbs.
Yes.
Now, one of the things, again, sort of this cutting edge science that we talk about is the study of what we call nutrigenomics. And I have a guest lecturer in our Introduction to Culinary Medicine course who talks about this. She's a world expert, wrote a wonderful book, The Genomic Kitchen, Amanda Archibald. Check it out if you can on Amazon. She teaches our nutrigenomics course. And what nutrigenomics is, this is so fascinating. So it turns out that a lot of natural compounds, many of which come from plants, have the ability, now these are not vitamins, they are not, like people talk about, antioxidants and things like that, that fit a different classification. They're compounds, and we call them bioactives. But believe it or not, what they do, based on your kind of individual genetics, is they can actually turn our genes on and off. So, for example, some people of Japanese descent, when they eat a certain type of seaweed that would be found in sushi, for example, it's actually turning on an anti-cancer gene for them. Now, I can eat sushi, not being of Japanese descent and not having that. I don't necessarily get that benefit. I get other benefits from eating, healthfully that way, and great sushi I just love. But it shows how these things can affect them affect us. A lot of bioactives are found in, herbs and spices. And so we don't need huge quantities of them. So practical culinary medicine is what you just said. It's that windowsill box, I call it a chef's garden
Yeah.
of fresh herbs. And it's a way to just elevate your food. So you've made that omelet in the morning. Man, you chop up a couple of those fresh chives, put it on there, a little fresh dill or a little fresh uh, parsley, and you just, up your game exponentially in terms of the flavors. You're bringing that freshness into it. You're going to enjoy it because it's going to taste great. It's that restaurant quality. But lo and behold, you put fresh herbs on this, man. You just kick your health and wellness, into overdrive. You turbocharge that meal.
I had some friends laugh. One time, it was just a couple of years ago, I had planted sweet peas. And so a couple of pea pods came out, like two huge ones came out, like nothing else really came out. Two of them came out. I took those two pea pods. I took a strip of bacon. I sauteed it together, and I was posting down pictures, and they were laughing. I was like, yeah, these are my peas. Bacon in my yard.
If we had everybody grow it, then we'd have world peas.
That's right. Exactly. But also, I'm asking a question in a second about this, but I also do like the fact that it's been my savior in terms of my health, that I have, dexterity, helps with dexterity with your garden. Also, it helps with brain function. It also helps you see something from beginning to end. You're growing something. It's like you're tending to something. There's something emotional about that. And I think there's a satisfaction when something blooms, when something fruits, when something harvests. Like it's a satisfaction because you watched it from seedling to completion on some level. But I was going to ask you, is there any culinary medicine proof about homemade food versus packaged, in terms of, like, you mentioned some of the emotional stuff, but I was wondering, is there any kind of, like, when you make your own food, sometimes it feels like it tastes better to me or whatever? I don't know. Is there any kind of health thing with that?
Well, yes, there is. And just not necessarily just homemade food,
Okay.
but what I would call real authentic food. So that would be food that is crafted from scratch, from whole ingredients. And so you could do that in the home, but there are a lot of great restaurants, have a lot of great chef
That's true.
friends
You're right. No, you're right.
that essentially do that for us in the restaurant by proper sourcing. And it's something actually we cover in great detail. A whole third of the course is what I call, and now, James, you are officially one of my wizards, because, my friend, that is the art of sorcery. So it is something that I learned as a chef and in culinary school and in running professional kitchens, that turns out, when I changed my chef's knives for my stethoscope, turns out to be one of the biggest, biggest areas where we can really focus in terms of delivering health benefit. And yes, there's a lot of information. The bulk of it is coming out in terms of the processing / ultra processing of the food and the additives and things that go into that.
Yeah.
So many years ago, when foods, and this goes back to the 1950s, were first approved, they were approved and still today are approved under what's known as GRAS, which is generally recognized as safe. So there's over, I believe, 5,000 different food additives that are allowed under GRAS. We only know actually a handful that have been tested, because GRAS basically means that the company comes and says, this is kind of like sugar, and we know sugar's safe, so we generally think this is pretty safe. They may do a test or two, and certainly we don't know the interactions in those. And when they have been studied, when they have been put to rigors, originally they were looked at in terms of their effect on human cells. And I'll give you a great example, which is artificial sweeteners.
Oh, okay.
So, and when we looked at them, we said, well, there's 0 calories, so they're not putting any calories into our bodies. They're inert in terms of being absorbed by the human gut, so they pass in, they pass out. And so they're fine, right? They're going to give us a sweetener. They're going to take away the calories. They're going to be great for us. Lo and behold, when we looked at particularly women who used a lot of these artificially sweetened beverages,
Yes.
we found that their rates of heart disease were essentially almost comparable to women who took sugar sweetened beverages. And in fact, not only did they have a risk for increased events, but their risk in terms of the severity of their cardiovascular events was much higher. Well, lo and behold, only several years ago, what we found, to kind of cut to the chase, and this is something that we actually study in our introductory class. It's the only part of the introductory class that I felt was so important that we had to give it 2 lectures, and that's the gut microbiome.
Mm.
So you and I are maybe, around 10 trillion cells or so. There are anywhere, based on estimates, from 50 to, upwards of 90 to trillion bacterial cells that make us up. So one can safely say, we are more unidentified fermenting organisms, UFO, or bacteria types, than we actually are human cells. And these additives change the composition of our garden. So it's as if you have this beautiful organic garden with your fruit trees and stuff. And I'm going to take that and transplant you and your garden, next to Fukushima.
Oh.
And your vegetables and trees are going to be kind of altered, in that landscape. So the garden in which we grow, which is our intestinal bacteria, becomes contaminated, and it shifts to this pro-inflammatory mixture of bacteria that leads to inflammation, which leads to leaky gut, which leads to atherosclerosis, which leads to mood issues, leads to inflammatory bowel diseases, is associated with depression. All these correlations definitely tie into the state of our gut microbiome, which is why you hear so much about gut health and probiotics, which is kind of what we're talking about. People need to realize, though, when it's not just the probiotics. So those healthy bacteria, they're like little sea monkeys that used to be on the back of the comic books.
Yeah.
When you order them, guys, you got to feed them. So the foods that you put in. So when you talk about, hey, I'm harvesting this from my garden, which is rich in these natural carbohydrates, inulin, oligosaccharides from the fruits and vegetables. That's the food. That's the fertilizer for your internal garden. So you really now get a certificate of graduation from culinary medicine, because you just named all the big things, my friend. Exactly.
Come
Spot
on, send
on.
it to me so I can put it on my wall.
Yes. So I will definitely send you one.
Yeah. Well, my teacher was Dr. Mike. But no, I mean, it's in those. I mean, I used to be in farm and ag insurance, so I do have some. I know that side. I know the farming side of a lot of stuff, and I know cranberry bogs and turkey round, all that kind of stuff. So when I come back to LA, I have a huge lot of land. I lucked out. I have a huge lot of land, and so I started saying this place is here, and I know how to place the trees and make sure female and male. I know the whole thing.
Yep.
So I know all that stuff. So I love. I'm part of a garden club. I'm actually part of a garden club. So here in LA, it's been around for 80 years. Actually, Culver City Garden Club's been around for 80 years. Part of them.
Wow.
So I love gardening. All things gardening. All my fans, followers, they know James is the gardener.
Well, I was gonna say there's a whole other aspect that you just hit on, and I just want to touch on it, because the whole act of gardening, as you said, there actually are studies on these. Most of these are Japanese, actually, and fall under the category. I don't know. Have you heard of forest bathing?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. So it's the same sort of concept, and it goes back to what we talked about, right? So I could give you a meal.
Yeah.
And I make you eat it in front of your cubicle. You got to wolf it down. You got to meet the boss for a heavy duty meeting in 10 minutes. And if I were to then draw your blood afterwards, measure parameters like blood pressure, heart rate, look at inflammatory mediators, they could be off the charts, even though I've given you, a delicious meal out of your garden. Now I let you eat that meal in a half hour. You're taking a break under, the pear trees. You're looking up, or you're watching the bees buzz the lemon trees. You're eating a whole different experience. And there actually is something to it. What they have found is that plants, particularly trees, secrete different types of things that we call phytochemicals, meaning that they come from the trees. And when we often inhale those, so we're not just eating, we're literally breathing in the forest and the environment. And those certain types of those compounds. They found some, particularly from the family of like the spruce and pine trees, actually are anti-inflammatory and work as antihypertensives. And what's fascinating is you see behind me, right? You see all this wood here,
Yeah.
right, in a log cabin. Well, it turns out that for decades after they're harvested, that these chemicals can be released from the tree. So when we surround ourselves, for example, with real wood furniture versus processed plastics, and concrete stone, we're actually putting our bodies in a whole different physiologic state,
Yeah.
again, just by being there. So the act of gardening, being out there, and in fact, again, studies have shown that getting out and working in the garden can improve your gut microbiome, irrespective of what you eat, because you're in the dirt with those beneficial bacteria. So like when I would come in with a bone sticking out of my leg and my mom would go, just rub some dirt on it, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
She was actually kind of right.
Right.
So
Right.
you like rub dirt on it, you'll be okay.
Right.
So really, for what ails you, go rub some dirt on it.
Well,
Be all right.
I just got, for my birthday last week, I got a hammock for my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. 51. I made 51.
Yeah, you look like you're 35, man.
Thank you. I took it all the time. I drink lots of water.
That's right.
But I got a hammock, so I'm out there. I'm like in the middle. I said, put it in the middle of my trees. I want to be around my trees. So I love it. So it's
I was gonna start crying. MC Hammock, man. It's hammock time.
I'll let you have that one. I'll let you have that one. But no, I mean, I tell people all the time because they're at home. Guys are at home. People are now, food's become like the number one thing, right? Besides toilet paper. Everyone's talking about food.
It's either end. You got it covered in either end.
Literally. Literally. But seriously, people are talking about food so much right now. It's like this weird thing because we're at home now. And so, I mean, what are just a couple of pieces of advice like to give people, just in general advice? We're going to talk about your culinary course on that next, but I want to talk about just in general. What would you tell people when they're home? They're home now, and food is like right next to them all the time. What would you tell people?
Well, now's a great time if you are uncomfortable with your culinary skills or you don't even have any culinary skills. How do you get great knife skills? You practice. So even when I can use my food processor, and I've got pretty good knife skills, having a lifetime in the culinary world, I get out there and practice, enjoy it. As you said, get close to your food, make your food. Want to use really good ingredients. Okay, so let's spend a little more for those quality organic beets, and let's do something crazy like make that beet leaf pesto. Learn to be economical. So often because over 50 cents of every food dollar was in before the COVID issues was spent dining out. Now people are home. We have an opportunity to convert that, what we were paying to dine out, into buying quality ingredients.
Great.
And so, you can't make, a chicken salad from, chicken feces when you start. So start with those ingredients, but buy a whole chicken. Now you got the time. Learn those skills, how to break it down, because you save the carcass and you throw that in, you're going to make a chicken stock. Also, a lot of people are stuck home with their kids now and wondering what to do. Well, involve your kids. I was very fortunate growing up when I grew up, and my mom loved to cook. She was a great home cook. And I was in the kitchen with her whenever I could get in there. And I learned those basic, kitchen skills. If this teaches us nothing, it's that we need to pass these survival skills on to our kids. So a great time to bond with your kids, make some stuff. And hey, you want to make cupcakes and some sweets, go ahead and do it. Again, it's that food experience. So these are the practical tips I would give, folks to get in there. And if your food relationship was all about the drive-through before, what better time to shift it than now? Really.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with that. And a lot of people are starting to cook more now. They're starting to try things out, and that's only because they kind of forced you on some level. But it's like they're saying, "Oh, I made my first pie yesterday, or I made my first this yesterday, or I tried this lasagna yesterday." And it's actually very, very cool. Very cool that people are doing that now, and I love that. So I love that. One of the things I want to ask you about, because which university are you at in Montana?
University of Montana.
University of Montana, and you're a professor there. So talk about, you have this program that might be out for people who are not going to the university specifically or something.
Right. So we've introduced our introduction to culinary medicine for the students. It's been well received, and I've been working. So just so folks know, I have cross appointments. I'm in the College of Health, which formerly was the College of Health Professions Biomedical Sciences. So we just shortened it because it was a big mouthful. So the College of Health, and my other cross appointment is in our culinary program. We have an accredited, awesome, with Chef Amy as the dean, 2-year culinary program. And so we've put this course together, Introduction to Culinary Medicine, and it will be on the docket again. Folks can sign up. It's a graduate level, but it's open to everyone, 3-credit course. And if folks are looking for college credits, they can certainly take our course, and we'll be expanding that over the next 2 years into a sort of concentration minor and its ultimate degree program, so folks can get a degree in culinary medicine. But I'm also real excited that next month we'll be offering through the university's online program a non-credit version. It'll be the same class, slightly constructed, slightly different because you'll be on your own timeline, but the core materials will be exactly the same. And folks will be able to take that and get what we call level 1 certification if they pass the course in culinary medicine. And then we'll be expanding that to a level 2, which will equate to our minor or concentration. And ultimately, folks will be able to get a level 3 certification, which will be the same as a degree in culinary medicine. And that will involve, actually, if you don't already have a culinary degree or other training, you'll come out and be in our culinary school for a little boot camp. Because, well, believe it or not, I've run into graduates of other culinary programs, physicians who are out there teaching culinary medicine to the public, but they have no culinary skills whatsoever. They don't know the difference between a braise and a saute. They don't know how to prep. And I think if we're going to do culinary medicine, at least in my opinion and the way we teach it, then you listen, you take culinary medicine course, you're not going to open a Michelin star restaurant. You're not going to be licensed by the state to be a healthcare practitioner in terms of PAs or nurses or counselors or things. But you are going to understand preventive medicine in terms of culinary medicine and the food experience. And you are going to have some basic culinary skills because that's what you've got to be able to teach.
So you do this is all online, correct?
Right. So our introduction to culinary medicine, it's, if you will, it's a tapas, it's a teaser, it's an appetizer course. It gives you a little taste of everything that we will be going into great depth in the deeper study, more degree-oriented programs. And it comes in kind of 3 silos. So the first we talk about, well, what is culinary medicine? And how do we teach it at the university? And why don't we just do nutrition and throw in some tasty kale recipes? Why isn't that just enough? And it also talks about some of the new things like Nutrigenomics, that we touched on earlier. The second part is something I think really differentiates our approach and brings the focus to the food experience, which is the non-ingredient influences on our dietary choices. So what does society do to us at large? Like, as we were talking, right, before COVID, most people spent their money eating out. Believe it or not, even with the Food Channel and all the magazines, culinary skills were on the decline. People love to get in the kitchen and watch somebody else cook. It was a social thing. So now, as you pointed out, that's really reversed with the knowledge that, hey, you know what? Culinary skills are a survival skill, basic culinary skills. So I have to learn those. So what are all these things influencing? We talk about the gut microbiome. For example, we talk about sociology type issues, psychology type issues, and how they affect us. And then the third is, which you're already a grand wizard of, the art of sorcery. What is it? The Sorcerer's Apprentice,
Yeah.
And you're the Merlin of the airwaves here. So, and that is the art of sorcery, which is all the things that you're doing and that you talk about, which is, does it make a difference if we get organic vegetables? And what is the data on that? is all red meat bad? And what's the data on that? I can easily and show you, and we talk about in the course, how some forms of red meat are much better than some fish you can eat. Yet people tend to think of fish healthy, red meat bad, for
Right.
example. We talk about fermented foods, which is a huge thing in terms of gut health, and really an ancient way of eating. So many people think, oh, this is really cool, this new fermented foods thing. No, that was how people preserve food tens of thousands of years ago.
Like the kombucha stuff, like all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, so we cover our ingredient choices, and really a lot of that, believe it or not, is driven from the culinary world. So we'll talk about gluten and grains and breads, and we have all those sorts of discussions.
Okay, so the questions about this course: are there any requirements you have to take before you take the course?
No, it's an
Okay.
introduction course.
Very straight.
So all you need is a curiosity, a willingness to keep an open mind, and a computer connection.
Okay,
And
and that's the
that's
next
it.
question. Next one's going to how are you teaching? Is it like this kind of thing, or is it what is it like?
Yeah, so we're setting it up as a self-study. So there's individual lectures. There's some
Oh,
required readings for the whole courses. There are required readings for individual sections that focus on what we're talking about. There are recommended readings if you want to take a deeper dive into things. There are then some discussions, some exercises, some things that you need to do, kind of on your own, at your own pace.
okay.
In talking with our chef, for many of my friends and colleagues and who are in the restaurant business, in the culinary world, which is a tough place to be right now, and we don't know if they're bouncing back, having a certificate in culinary medicine may allow you to do some things like some of my other friends do, which is, out on the West Coast, they cook for some celebrities, do kind of put that in your repertoire. I don't just have a culinary degree. I'm not a chef. I also understand culinary medicine, and go in terms of crafting meals for populations that need that kind of attention to detail, or individuals.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. And so, where can they find? Well, you said it's coming out soon, or
Right. So if folks they can just follow me on Facebook. It's Chef Dr. Mike, Chef Dr. Mike. Same on Twitter. Real Chef Dr. Mike on Instagram. We'll have those announcements and those links up. The website we're revamping to accommodate information about the course and access, but it's still up now, so they can just go to chefdrmike.com. And if they follow us, then they'll get the updates. The course will be going live next month. I don't know exactly when, probably towards the end of June.
okay. I gotta make sure I'm following on Instagram. I don't know if I'm following you on Instagram. I'm on Instagram all
Oh
the
yeah,
time.
that's where all the delicious food pictures go.
Exactly. I post things all the time.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had gumbo for my birthday, and I posted my beautiful gumbo picture.
And I love gumbo, and people are all about like, oh, gumbo, that can't be good for us. Like, no, it's all about the great ingredients, right?
Mhm.
And man, like Jimmy Buffett, I will play for gumbo.
Same here. I was like, my gumbo, I had real crab legs, I had real shrimp, I had real andouille sausage and chicken. It was the bar and okra.
Les bon temps roulés,
Okay, that's right.
mon ami.
That's right. I was like, I don't care. I said, I'm turning 51. I want a big pot of gumbo, and I did it.
Oh man, every Mardi Gras, man, I am making it. The quality, like you said, got to be the andouille sausage, a little chicken,
Yep.
maybe some seafood,
Yep.
and that got to start with that dark roux. Yeah, I
Yep.
actually went to and took some cooking school classes back in the day in New Orleans from some really
Okay.
homegrown New Orleans chefs there, and one morning was nothing more than learn to do your roux correctly, because that's gotta
I've
have
had
that roux.
bad roux. I've had people. I've had. I mean, not good. Not good at all. Ooh.
Oh, I'm gonna hook you up, man. We're gonna fix your bad roux juju, and
Yeah. I'm like,
turn
ooh.
that around.
Well, not at all. But your class sounds so interesting. I'm interested, kind of. I think maybe taking it. I'm very interested.
Oh, well, absolutely. You and I. Well, we always stay in touch anyway. But I'll drop you a line when it's there, and I'll get you hooked up with it. Because as somebody who you have a passion for food, as I do. You're out there, gardening.
Right.
I'd love to get your.
I'm a former nurse.
Yeah. So I'd love to get your feedback on it.
Okay. Yeah.
Pun intended.
I know, yeah. Feed,
Feedback.
feedback, yeah, well. But no, seriously, I'm actually, when you told me, I was like, that sounds very interesting. This could be a fun little, I've been looking for something to do, some more education or something, and I'm like, this could be really interesting.
Well, this is different. Like I said, it really covers the gamut. I've got some interesting guest lecturers. One who is a dear friend of mine and a mentor gives a lecture on dining with the dead. So it talks about the history because, you know, again, we talk about food as social currency, but how important was it when you didn't know if you had a meal on your table, but you were willing to give an offering to the ancestors? And so what role does food play in our connection not only to each other but the roots of who we are as individuals? And Andrew talks about this in terms of what he teaches. So he's been a guest lecturer at other universities and stuff in the United Kingdom, but he does it in terms of Celtic shamanism. And he's a fascinating guy, and you should have him on your, I mean,
Yes,
obviously your show, but I'll give you his contact information. You'd love to. And one of his books is required reading, which as a former nurse, I think you would agree with me on this. He talks about raven, crows, and the symbology of death and the importance of letting go of death. And I found that discussion and its whole relationship to food, obviously, but that whole discussion important for all the healthcare workers because I was never taught that as a healthcare worker. And it's hard for us. We deal with a lot of death, and then we don't know how to process it, and we don't let go of it. And you know, that can build up and bind us, you know, emotionally and spiritually and physically.
yeah.
So it's very important that we learn. And I, after going through some work in that area with him, so I could be a better physician and a better healer. I certainly found that when I needed to be able to do that with patients and families, I was able to help them get through very difficult situations in a very authentic way that left me feeling empowered instead of leaving me feel like a failure, and left the families in a much, you know, better state. And I think it's just a boon for all healthcare workers. And it's I'll send you a link to that book as well, because you know a lot of healthcare workers like I do, and I'd be interested on your take. I was never taught that. I mean, they teach that to you in nursing school?
No, but I had outside people,
Yeah,
you know.
and that's what it takes, right?
I come from a very medical family. My family's either in healthcare administration on one side or actual doctors and nurses on the other side. So I didn't. Yeah, I had to learn that on my own. I learned to kind of that stuff was on my own. So I'm going to read the books. I can see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of. I have people in my life who are very spiritual. I also have a doctorate in divinity. So I do have like, you know, I do everything. So I do have like a religion background in there too a little bit. So I mean, there's things that I had to seek on my own,
Right,
to help me in my professions, which a lot of us have to do sometimes. You're right, they don't teach you that stuff. It teaches you the technical aspects of everything.
yes,
And you know, and you say it this way, there's the bedside manner, you just say it like this. I explained to somebody once about when someone dies, we do a lot of death too when I was a nurse, and would say you tell the person they died. Don't say they're not here anymore. They're gone. Don't say because their brain is not. They teach you that kind of stuff, but they don't teach you how to go home after that and go, wow, I lost 3 patients today. Like, what does that mean for me? Because you're carrying it. Some of us carry it in, and we don't know a way to release it. So I had to learn that later. I had to learn all that later.
Yeah, and I was talking to one person who actually counseled other health caregivers, and her analogy was, well, what I teach them is it's like when your wastebasket gets full, stomp it down some more so you can put. And I was like, that is about the worst analogy, because at some point you got to empty that basket,
Right? Exactly.
Otherwise it just starts to rot, and you don't want to become a spiritual compost heap.
I like that.
You could use it. My gift to you.
Chef Dr. Mike, I love you. You know that.
I love you, brother.
Yeah, I love this. It's so great. I can talk to you forever. So, folks, chefdrmike.com. He's also Chef Dr. Mike on Facebook and on Twitter. And like I said, real Dr. Chef. Wait a second. How are you on Instagram?
Real Chef Dr. Mike on Instagram.
On Instagram. I'm going to follow you. I think I'm following you. I'm going to follow you on Instagram because I don't think I am. Yeah. So follow him there for this and more information. And when you find this episode, like, comment, subscribe, rate. Let us know what you think. I mean, if you have an idea, you have a thing you want to pass on to him, I'll pass information on to him. You want to get in touch with him, of course. Also, I know some people, you want to go through me, that's fine. I'll get you to him. That's not a problem. Not a problem. And this podcast is everywhere. It streams every streaming service. The video is on my YouTube channel, JLJ Media. Subscribe while you're there. I have all kinds of other episodes, and his episode's on there from Extra Connections on there from years ago. It's on there also. And you can find me where all James Lott Jr. is sold, at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. I mean, I'm everywhere. Trust me. You can find me there. Everyone, please stay safe and sane, and be cognizant of what you put into your bodies emotionally and physically.